Some people said they were joining live, so I want to make sure that's working. Oh, homelessness. I didn't realize 9% are veterans. That's a good amount. And a lot of them choose to stay homeless, which is weird. Like they don't want to deal with the system much after going to war in the Gaza Strip and stuff before sending them there. I wanted to see what rural homelessness comes up as. That's the one I was looking for.
Are listening to Upzone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Upzone, a show where we take a big story from the news that touches the Strong Towns conversation and we upzone it. We talk about.
I actually didn't want the podcast one though. Oh, they're starting to ban tent cities. This is it. Have you seen a tent city before? It's like where the homeless people live. All right, this is what this is about.
Struggle to lose weight. When this special coffee loophole helped me drop from 184 to 123 in.
Is that Oprah? Sounds like Oprah.
It's not that I'm not trained to not be out here, because believe me, everybody, I don't want to be out here.
I know myself, I'm ready to go back indoors. It sucks.
You hear people throw out some rude remarks saying, get a job, you filthy bum.
It's just something so out of place, and it scares people.
There's got to be an answer to solve this problem rather than just keep pushing them from neighborhood to neighborhood.
They were taking tents and they started pulling our tents up, and whether we wanted to or not, they were taking them.
They wasn't giving us a chance to get nothing out.
And the garbage is the worst, and it smells like feces over there.
We've witnessed daily drug use and drug dealing in broad daylight.
Housed or houseless, this camping is illegal.
I don't want this town to stay here though, because now my children have been put at risk.
They steal stuff off of our porch, out of our yard. They go through our garbage cans.
It's not that I feel unsafe in my home. I feel unsafe now leaving my home. The heroin, the house break-ins, the car break-ins. This is not a homeless problem. This is criminal behavior.
Why are we seeing so many tents on any given night? We've got 1,600 or more people sleeping outside. This is a very human and very real and complicated situation.
Given a choice tonight, would you rather sleep in a shelter or in a tent?
How long have you been in Portland?
My opinion, my outlook on things, I really believe that Portland could do a lot better.
Portland's always had homelessness, but this is different. The tents, they're visible. They're in your face.
Yeah, they are. It seems like they're everywhere. But there are also people living inside those tents. And, during this process, we spent time with more than 100 of them. It's no way to live.
And people are compassionate, yes, but they're frustrated. The tents, the trash, it's changed the look of our town.
And it's pretty clear by this point that there's no easy solution. But before we even begin to talk about solutions, we wanted to kind of get to know who's living inside these tents and why.
This is the survey that we created. Basic questions, just a few of them, asking about how long these people have been living in tents why they're living in tents. And really our goal is to go out and talk to these people who are living in tents, whether it be on the roadside, in a park, wherever we find them.
It's kind of embarrassing sometimes, you know? This is the first time I've really been this homeless.
So we're going around and we're surveying 100 people living in tents to try and find out more about who these people are.
Most of the people are pretty decent out here. You won't find very many that, you know, are heartless and mean. Most of them are really good people. They just have little struggles in their life. Everybody does.
You walk out your tent 10 feet, not even 10 feet, you can touch another tent. Every 4 or 5 feet, there's a lot more tents now than there were before.
Why do you think that is?
People need housing. I mean, that's simple. They need housing, they need help. Not everybody can do it by themselves. You know, we're not all able.
For all those people who drive by and see your tent, I mean, what would you want them to know about you? What should they know about you?
Human just like them. Just fell down and just need help getting back up, I guess.
How long have you been living in a tent?
Since the 6th of August.
Recently then. So you've only been on this in a tent for a few weeks.
I honestly hate this so much. I wish I could be home. Like, I wish I could be in my bed, in my room, able to eat whenever I want, but now I have to walk like at least 5 to 6 blocks to eat something or go to the bathroom. It's really difficult.
How long have you been living in a tent?
About a year.
This ain't as easy as most people think. It ain't.
It's not camping.
No, it's not. Not even close. I love going camping. This just ain't it. This ain't camping at all.
Why do you live in a tent versus other sheltered locations?
Because I don't like shelters. They're dirty, they're gross, they're just not sanitary. I mean, I like having my own space and living with my significant other. Shelters, you can't stay with your significant other. Tents it's like my own space, secluded. I can do my own thing. I have my own, I don't have a given amount, a certain time where I have to be in somewhere.
A shelter, I can't go because of my dogs, and I'm not willing to give my animals up. My animals are like family to me. I'm not willing to give them up for somebody to be in a shelter. It's
How long
about
you
2
been-
days here.
You only been in this spot?
Yeah.
Do you expect you can stay for a while?
I know we'll move on pretty soon. We're going down the trail.
And they'll force you out, or will you voluntarily move? Why are you gonna move?
Because we tried to move before the park rangers come. We tried to keep moving on.
It's the challenge for these folks. I mean, they don't know necessarily how long they can be in one spot for a certain amount of time before they have to pack up and head somewhere else. So, you talk about insecurity. I think this is part of it. Yeah, it almost seems like this game of cat and mouse where you set up.
It is.
Is it difficult?
It is. It's difficult.
So where are you going now?
Not really sure.
Let's move to the next spot.
Something like that, yeah.
We get told to do like every week. Even the ones that keep their places clean or whatever, it doesn't matter what you do.
We've been finding that a lot of these people, not all of them, but a lot of them, have drug or alcohol problems. Some of them have mental health issues.
Honestly, after being out here for a long time, I really believe that like 80% of the people are out here because they want to be. Because either it's their choice to live the way they're living or because of drug abuse, that's what they're choosing. But not very many people are like really wanting to, like there are some, but a lot of people want to be where they're at, I think. They're not ready to make changes.
When did you come to Portland?
I've lived here my whole life, pretty much.
I've lived here my whole life.
Whole life.
When I was like 4.
What's your whole life?
Grew up here.
Yeah. The thing I'm finding in talking to these people is they're not coming to town because of opportunity or because there are tents available. These are people who have lived here their entire life or for decades. I mean, they're not newcomers.
Given a choice tonight, would you rather sleep here or in a shelter?
Probably here, less people, less headaches. I don't do well with people and, yeah.
Rather sleep in a tent.
I'd much rather sleep in a tent, but I'd sure like to have drawers for my socks and things.
Oh, tent. Why is that? Because there's too many people.
In shelters.
Yeah.
Too many people.
Yeah.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is
So a
not
lot
the
of
physical.
cities have these tent cities. This is just research on those tent cities.
For you, are there other options besides a tent? I mean, are there other places you could stay?
I don't have a family here. I got my oldest boy. He lives up in Colgate here. But he's got 5 kids of his own. He's got his own family. And I really don't let on to them to know how I'm not doing that good.
As far as it goes, it's my home. I wish you the best. Thank
That's the thing. You talk to these people living in tents, they all have a story.
Yeah, I mean, it happens every time I walk into a homeless camp. I always meet somebody who grabs me in some way, whether they sort of pull at my heartstrings or they piss me off, they make me happy, they make me frustrated. In this process, I met a woman named Willow who actually let me spend a few days with her. All right, so we're here. It is Wednesday morning. We're here kind of where the Springwater Corridor meets Foster. We're here to find Willow. When we first met Willow a couple of weeks ago, she was staying where 205 crosses Woodstock. And she'd been there for a while, but that was ODOT land. And we covered this a lot. ODOT crews came and told her and her friends to move along. So they have now moved to land just next to the Springwater Corridor. And they said, hey, if you want to come follow us, you have to come here. So we're coming here. We haven't seen their new spot yet. We're going to go find her. And the plan is to pretty much follow her throughout the day. Let's go do it.
Willow has told us where she'd be,
Anybody back here?
but it's not exact.
You can see here, we're kind of getting into the parts of the corridor that are more brush covered.
And there's a chance she could have had to move again. It happens a lot.
Hey guys, I'm really sorry to bother you. We're with Channel 8. We're looking for Willow.
We find her and her camp. No one else wants to be on camera.
Yeah, is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for my.
Okay. We meet around a corner,
Hey Willow.
and right away, we're walking. Willow's Luna has an eye infection. Taking her to the vet will be no quick.
Crazy, I forget how industrial of an area this is.
Translation, she says, nothing out here is easy.
This last winter was really harsh.
On the way, we learn about Willow's life.
And I love my kids.
She talks of her 2 grown kids
They're the best thing I've ever done in my life.
and the husband she lost to leukemia. She was 29.
We had been together for 14, 15 years.
After that, her life and her business in California collapsed.
I just couldn't stay there because everything reminded me of it.
That is one reason Willow is homeless. The other, she's epileptic. Weekly seizures leave her tired and confused. She lives off of disability, roughly $700 a month.
I mean, it would take all of my check to pay rent.
Yeah.
And then I would have nothing to live on at all.
10 a.m. We're at the Max stop.
I'll be right back.
Break time.
It's crazy to think about. All she's trying to do is get eye cream for her dog. Her dog's had this eye infection on and off for a year, and she blocked out 4 hours of her day for this one errand. Most of us, we take our dog to the vet, maybe an hour, hour and a half, you can do it on your lunch break. For her, this is her day, and it might not even work because it depends on if the clinic has time.
We're riding the Green Line north. This route is familiar.
Yeah, this bridge coming up is where we stayed
When I was first homeless. Willow's been homeless in Portland for almost a decade. How many would you say were staying under there?
About 5 to 9.
5 to 9. Yeah. Is there a point where it's so many people in one spot that it can get kind of crazy?
Oh, well, yeah, it is. They had water for there were so many people. It was like never quiet. Human.
We get off at 82nd Avenue and walk to the Portland Animal Welfare Team. That's a nonprofit that provides free vet care.
I told him that was because
Most days you need an appointment. We don't have one.
And you go back primarily by Willow.
yeah.
Staff ask Willow for ID. That's a problem.
My backpack was just stolen not too long ago. And fortunately I kept my picture ID and my phone case, but all the rest of my ID and stuff was in there.
We hear that a lot. Many living outside don't have any IDs. They've been lost or stolen. Without those, getting a job, an apartment, or a replacement is next to impossible. Today, Willow is out of luck. I and
Will you be able to come back for an appointment next Wednesday, the 23rd?
head out.
So they said to come back in a week.
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Is that frustrating to you? Or is that
No, it's fun. It's great. At least she's going to be taken care of. I'll just keep cleaning it out because I have a wash and I wash.
Next, on to another nonprofit. It's called Join. Willow gets her mail there, and her disability check is
I
due.
stayed underneath the Max train.
As we walk, we hear stories of how cruel people can be to campers. One woman was ruthless.
She said, well, at least I worked. And then I didn't lay on my back like you did, unlike you, or something like that. Like she was referring that I was a prostitute or something. And
How does that
that's,
hit you as a woman? I mean,
well, it's a little frustrating, that people prejudge.
at Join, Willow goes in.
Yeah, I'll take some food.
Minutes later, back out.
Come on, baby, I know what's hot. Come on.
And we walk away empty-handed. That check is late. It happens.
One time it was like 6 days late.
That's a lot. I mean, if your rent is 6 days late or if your other bills.
Hi, Mark Barton, Sandy Hook Farmers here. When the gunman shot his way into Sandy Hook Element.
We get back on the train, still talking of money.
There are a couple people that do have jobs. Yeah.
But something is changing. Pauses are lingering. Epilepsy is taking over.
It's, I'm having like a little bit of an absence seizure thing that I told you about before. I can't think straight.
An absence seizure, blank, cloudy periods that can hit out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go home and take a pill and lay down under a tree or something.
Willow's afraid a full-blown seizure is coming next.
you want to just kind of chill and
So we agree to stop the interview. But remember, we still have to get back to camp. It's a long walk. We take it slow. Willow insists she'll be okay, but her day is done. That night, Willow had that full-blown seizure, the kind that leaves her exhausted and confused. The next day, crews ordered her group to move again. It doesn't matter that Willow is tired. Life on the streets goes on.
I hear versions of Willow's story time and time again from people living in tents. They're all complicated stories and they don't have a clear path forward.
One common thread we've heard from people living in tents, they've been here for years. But now suddenly we're seeing all these tents.
Yeah.
So what's changed?
Homeless camps, crime, and trash in the Lentz neighborhood as people who live there asking the city for help. Neighbors have found their car windows smashed, their garbage ransacked.
Neighbors in Lentz have had it with a seemingly endless cycle. Homeless camps get moved into distance somehow.
I've been a lot of places and I've never seen it like this ever. Portland is the worst. They steal stuff off of our porch, out of our yard. They go through our garbage cans.
We witnessed daily drug use and drug dealing in broad daylight, people exposing themselves, defecating, urinating.
I'm Sergeant Randy Teig. I work with the East Precinct Emergency Response Team. From my perspective, it just slowly grew, and then it was like I went down the trail one day and went, what just happened out here?
Well, why do you think tents? Why has that created such conflict? I mean,
I think what it is, it's just a symbol of disorder, and I think that our communities are not designed to support that. And when you see it's just something so out of place, and it scares people. I just think it's that simple. It's just not normal. And tents in a campground, normal. You know, tents in along a bike path, not.
so at what point did we open the floodgates and people really begin setting up tents?
I think probably end of 2014, things started getting rapidly, depending on your perspective, getting worse or more people.
That's around the time that Portland was implementing rules required by a federal lawsuit known as Anderson versus the City of Portland. It would totally change the way the city deals with homeless, especially police. They had to post a notice at least 24 hours in advance of moving a camp. Camps couldn't be cleared at night. And police had to catalog and store any confiscated property. It protected the legal rights of campers, yes, but it slowed down the process of moving troublesome camps.
My name is Mark Jolin. I'm the director of the Joint Office of Homeless Services.
Do we allow people to live in tents?
So that is a harder question to answer because on the one hand, it's not lawful to set up structures in the right of way. On the other hand, if someone sets up a tent who is homeless, they have some protections in place under legal settlements that have been entered into over the years.
We've always had homelessness. We've had some tents, right? But now there's just much greater number of tents. So what's changed?
So there are a couple of things driving that. To some extent, you know, we have this concentration of folks who are struggling with disabilities and are sleeping outside and don't have options right now, and they're gravitating towards tents, and there are fewer kind of out of the way places anymore for folks to go if they're going to be in a tent. So that's mattered.
This is by far the single issue that we hear the most about. And virtually every one of the hundreds of calls we get every week starts like this. I'm a compassionate person, but.
Homelessness has always been an issue here, though. Why is it, what is it about the tents that brings out this level of conflict and this dynamic in the community?
You know, our city has been inconsistent and I would even argue ineffective in addressing the tent issue, focusing narrowly on that. For a number of years, we weren't even enforcing overnight camping codes.
We have to manage the problem as we move them more quickly into housing. That's the goal.
It was called the safe sleep policy, and a lot of people sleep in small groups, in tents, or on sidewalks during the evening hours. But the policy created a lot of confusion.
That gave Portland's homeless free reign to spend the night undisturbed in tents or sleeping bags on city sidewalks. But
Portland Group has had enough of Mayor Charlie Hale. Advocates, but they say the mayor's camping policy, which allows the homeless to sleep on the sidewalks and pitch their tents in public places, is actually doing more harm than good. And they say the decision the mayor keeps.
That process sort of kicked off a real shift on the ground around people where they chose to locate with the tents, and the level of confusion it created and the challenges around creating real accountability on the ground for the choices people were making led to sort of a proliferation of tents in places we hadn't historically seen them. They became much more concentrated in a lot of situations.
Did Mayor Hale's policy create confusion? Was there misperception?
Yeah, it created a lot of confusion. I mean, it was, officers did not know what they were allowed to do. This becomes a legal quagmire, basically. So it starts getting very complicated. And I just don't think that when he did that policy that he anticipated that problem.
I think they're not doing nothing about it. I think there's nothing, and there's no law saying we can't put a tent up, is there?
Charlie Hales wasn't around for an interview, but he sent an email and said, arguing about safe sleep is a sideshow at best. He pointed out that cities up and down the West Coast are dealing with the same issue, homelessness and tents.
Portland's homeless situation, while it is dire, I'm not making any excuses, it is dire. The reality is our homeless situation is not as severe as it is in Seattle, San Francisco, LA, or other cities up and down the West Coast. We don't believe camping in a tent is a humane alternative to living in a warm, dry place with access to water, access to showers, access to laundry, and access to social services that can actually help people get out of homelessness.
Do you foresee a day when there are no tents visible on the streets of Portland?
I think that has to be our goal in the sense that if we didn't have any tents on the streets of Portland, it would mean that we had figured out how to, scale our shelter and our housing programs to the level where everyone who found themselves with no better option in the moment had a better option.
Our goal was not to solve this problem, but to better understand it.
Right, remember, we wanted to figure out how we got here and who's living inside these tents.
Because clearly, there's no easy solution here, but maybe this is a step in the right direction.
If nothing else, it might be a step in understanding the complexity of this problem, and again, just recognizing these are real people.
They become invisible to a lot of people that just do not want to look in that direction.
Spend a week in my shoes.
It's not as easy as most people think. And they so lazy bastards. No, it's a little more to it than that.
And they look at us like a zoo animal.
Just because we're homeless, it doesn't mean we're all bad.
I mean, it's hard. It's really hard, and I wish people around us would care a little bit.
So that's how the city of Portland handled it. My hometown in Cincinnati, we had some different policies that came up too. A lot of times, social services get involved. They get access to psychologists, social workers, counselors, and whatnot. But a lot of times it does become more invisible. Maybe they'll go to the rural areas where they'll live in a camper or double up. And mainly it is that lack of affordable housing. So the agency I worked for in 2016, we wrote a $1 million grant that we received to provide a lot of different jobs to end homelessness in Cincinnati. It was called Ending Homelessness in Cincinnati by 2020, and it gave a lot of resources, access to like job training programs from the social workers. People could go have psychological services. We had a few federal acts that were passed. So there was the Stuart B. McKinney Homeless Assistance Act of '87. That was about 35 years ago, and it reauthorized a few years later as the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, and it establishes numerous programs and services. So that was one of the acts that we had written that grant for. And then U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. In Cincinnati, we founded the local Coalition for the Homeless. That's in Cincinnati. There's also a state coalition for the homeless. It's the Ohio State Coalition for the Homeless, and then the Federal Coalition for the Homeless. So it has gotten to where, with 500,000 people, homelessness all over has gotten a bit worse. Social work's response to homelessness. So the NASW advocacy agenda, there's 6 bullet points: ensuring affordable housing, adequate housing for all, advocating housing subsidies as entitlements, strengthening the continuum of care that integrates housing, income assistance, and supportive services, funding prevention programs, including education, job training, and support services, and then promoting policies that support paying living wages to employees. Was anybody presenting today? No. Okay. So with the economy and unemployment, so a big bunch of stats, actually new stats have come out, and they're pretty similar on this, but so the rates of unemployment overall in 2017, it was 4.3%. So it actually looks good. It's only 1 out of 20 people have no job that is looking or actively looking. They had the unemployment at 3.5% for Asian, 3.7 for white, 5.2 for Hispanic, and then 7.5 for Black. And then the calculation they had, the basis was monthly surveys of household random samples that they put out. So sometimes they'll ask, I often question these unemployment stats because you can look at different websites. One of them is shadowstats.com, and it shows that it's actually probably 20% unemployment and maybe even higher for all of those numbers. So the ratio is often unemployed persons to the total labor force. So how many jobs do you think America has? If you were to make a guess, how many jobs are in America? It is Googleable. I remember when it's better, they say it's about 62 to 63 million. They call it labor force. So we have 350 million people in America documented. The labor force is at around and this is another reason why I question their stats. Because if we have 350 million people, yes, a lot of them are kids, but okay, so they say we have 167 million people in the United States that have a job. So the civilian labor force, it's about half really. If we have 350 million people, how many of us are in school or on unemployment? So have you guys ever understood how unemployment works? Like, how do you get unemployment? How do you apply for it if you do get laid off? So every job you have that's like a full-time job, you pay into what's called unemployment insurance. So if you get laid off, oftentimes you get like 26 months of unemployment, which is like a percentage of what you made. And that's why some of our salary goes to unemployment insurance. Here's the civilian labor force seasonally adjusted. So just understanding how some of these work, you can tell after COVID, we had about 6 million less jobs, but we also have that many people like that turn 18 every month. So they talk about keeping up with the birth death ratio with adding jobs, but right now they're saying we have 167.84 million. One stat that comes to mind, last month they said we added 800,000 total jobs into our workforce, which sounds like a lot, right? It's like, oh, cool. That means everybody in 50 states, that would be like 20,000 jobs per state. Well, so there is a problem with that statistic. We lost 1.1 million full-time jobs, but the addition was 800,000 part-time jobs. So, and if you look at, and it's hard to find it because they keep it difficult statistics to find in the first place. They want to say the economy's good, everything's well. Do any of you guys know somebody unemployed or was laid off? You said no or yeah? Okay. At home or local or around or? Yeah. Well, no. Sometimes they don't count you guys if you're a student, so that's considered like actively working towards a job. But it's a good, and I want to get this stat right because so I think we lost 800,000 full-time jobs, but we added 1,100,000 part-time jobs. So it sounds like we added 300,000 jobs. But because we lost 800,000 full-time jobs, now everybody's working 2 jobs or 3 jobs. That's kind of what, for me, that seems like a problem. It's like, so we don't have enough full-time jobs. And that was the September-October statistics. So right now, apparently, we do have 167 million jobs. But there's a good, like often I go to shadowstats.com because they kind of show government statistics that they kind of shade. They throw some shade on it in all reality. So here's public unemployment, public commentary on unemployment. So they're saying official, they say we only have, well, you see this coronavirus spike, that's when COVID happened and they just laid off everybody. Does anybody know somebody who got laid off during COVID? Mom, dad, cousin, brother. It was very common. So it's not like, so that's what this spike is right here. Now we're getting back to normal. What they say is normal is 4% unemployment, right about here. The broadest, so U6, that stands for like under 6 months. So they don't count you after 6 months. Like if you've been unemployed for 6 months, they stop counting you, which seems like kind of bullshit too. So it's like, why wouldn't you count somebody who's unemployed for 7 months? But they don't. And then the shadow stats has it at, during COVID, as high as 35%. So a third of us didn't have a job during COVID. And then right now it has it at 20 right there. No, that's 25. So a quarter of us don't have a job. Again, as a student, you might not get counted. There is definitely something to be said about it. I always go to this guy just because he really does have some decent commentary on shadow government statistics. And is Dr. John Williams. So he talks about counting all discouraged and displaced workers. And unemployment rose to 23%. That was actually right before the 2016 election. So it was bad back then, but it's just something to consider. Let me see if the Home has better. So he's still putting out numbers, but it looks like it's currently another government statistic is the Consumer Price Index. So you can like follow how much everything is costing you. Like a lot of times they'll put out the numbers of how much it cost Walmart to buy something. How much do you guys pay to buy something from Walmart? Have you noticed a rise at all? Like 20%, 30%, 40%? Okay. Yeah, because here actually CPI, they're saying government announced it as about 8. Well, it's back down to 4, but the actual inflation was up here like 15%, and it has lowered back down to possibly 8. So that's one. There's also M3. This one is a money supply chart. So this is interesting. Have any of you guys gotten a stimulus check before? I know I often ask this, but I forget who answers yes. Stimulus check. Sometimes you get it through your parents because they're like, okay, here's $1,800 for you and your dependents. So like your parents got money for you being a dependent. Well, here's what happened during COVID. So this is what our money supply was at. About $2 trillion. And that was in 2012. We were at 2 trillion. They try to like rope back in. This is how they curb inflation. Guess what happened during coronavirus when they started giving out stimmy checks? This is what they're reporting. Like the M3, oh, they stopped reporting M3, but they still, M3 official was stopped in 06. Holy shit. But here's how much money they printed. So we had 2 trillion. Then during COVID, they printed it up to 4 trillion. Then we hit 6 trillion. This is how many dollars are out there, like floating around. And the problem is we have that many more dollars chasing the same good. So like if you want to buy gas, you want to buy milk, you want to buy whatever, it used to be there was only 4 trillion. And that was just 2020. Then you go up to 2021. We went from 4 trillion floating around to 8 trillion. Last year it hit 10 trillion was out there. And then, and this is year over year change. So what that does is creates inflation. So I know these are difficult charts to understand, so I don't expect you guys, but I want you to be familiar with them because it affects all of us. Like how much does my computer cost to buy? Like I think even like iPads and like those Amazon pads, I bought one for my kids, maybe for like 50 or 80 bucks in 2020. And then for the second kid, we bought one and it went to 110 to 140. So like a lot of electronics went way up in price. Some of them went down. So like TVs and crap like that, you still can get pretty cheap, I think, maybe like 100 bucks. Cars. Anybody hear about the 20 cars that were towed out of the lot 2 nights ago and one of them got hit by the repo guy? And so to get their car back, they have to pay the repo guy $26,000. Yeah, that would piss me off. It's often if you're behind on payments and the repo guy finds you, they take it. And it's also a breach of contract. So say you bought that car for $26,000 from whomever. And with interest, it might have even gone up. Say you bought it for $24,000, it went up to $26,000. So because that contract was breached, they're saying we ain't giving your car back till you pay all of it now. Or like you get another loan from a bank like PNC, they'll give you a 3%, 5% interest rate loan. So that's kind of where the unemployment stuff gets real. So some of the consequences of unemployment, we got individuals and families. There's psychological stressors there. There's social stressors, financial stressors, multiple losses. So you lose your self-esteem. Anybody here ever been fired or laid off or anything that wants to share about it? There's no shame in it. I in social work, a lot of times we say you do like the easy 2 weeks notice before, you know it's about to get laid off. And so you give them 2 weeks notice. You also lose your work-related friendships. There was a year when I had 5 different full-time jobs in 5 different years because the job market is not easy no matter what you go into. They were even talking about farmers' mental health today on the radio and how they're dealing with weather changes, early freezes, challenges like that. There's 5 farmer suicides in the state of Ohio this year. I didn't even think about that. So like the stress of farming. So there is like loss of life. Your children's behavior changes. So like think about being able to buy things for school. Maybe it is a new pair of shoes. School achievement and attitude toward work changes. With communities, you've got economic instability because when you work in a community, you pay taxes that like help fix up that community. There's global changes, so you got economic interdependence because when we have money, we buy the crap from China. You guys ever bought something from China? Do you know what it was? What are they? Clothes. Yeah, a lot of clothes come from China. And so that's why a lot of people say, in terms of the economy, when the U.S. has a cold, the rest of the world gets pneumonia because we're the largest consumer society of things. Anybody ever seen a third world country here? Even if it was on TV. There's a major difference in that way of life, you know, major difference. So social work and unemployment, we were probably the biggest defender of having unemployment benefits. Actually, during the last Great Recession, they said we went up to around instead of 26 months of unemployment, they extended it out to around 52 weeks of unemployment. And even for a moment, they got up to 150 weeks. So that's like a year and a half. So if we couldn't, that's how long it took for some folks to find a job. So it's temporary compensation in form of partial wage or wage replacement, originated by Social Security Act in 1935. So we've had it for almost 90 years. It's both combined state and federal venture because there is different costs of living in each state. So the feds give you so much, and then your state gives you so much. And then there's workers' compensation. It's compensation for work-related diseases or injuries. There's also state fund and direct program benefits and compensation, and that all varies from state to state. And then there's services for people unemployed. So social workers get in with that. It's overt or underlying factors of clients' problems dealt with in the context of family agencies, mental health centers, employee assistance programs. And that's a big one. Has anyone ever heard of an EAP before, Employee Assistance Program? What that stands for is that usually your parents have a job and they will offer you EAP to see a counselor for free so many times a year. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 7. Because I see a lot of folks that come in on an EAP and it's at no cost to you. Like the reason being, if there's turmoil in your family, it affects your work performance. So they want you to be mentally well and they offer these EAPs because of that. It says requirement is multi-level strategies to deal with contextual issues associated with unemployment. So if somebody had lost the job, we even have COBRA, so you'd keep your insurance and also could see a counselor, see a social worker, do counseling to get a job. There is also several, and I'm going to get into this more on Tuesday, but social work and criminal justice. So we've got crime and delinquency that define crime as acts or behaviors that violate the law, crimes against either persons, property, or society. A lot of times misdemeanors are when like you do a different event that doesn't affect too many other people. Maybe it is, I'm trying to think of it. It's easier to explain it from felonies first. So felonies are usually when you mess with somebody else's property, or if you fight with somebody and hit them. So you like got assault, battery. Assault is actually defined as you don't have to hit somebody. Like some of them is you work at the fast food restaurant and you see your hated rival coming through, so you spit on their hamburger. And if they eat that and they know you spit in the hamburger, that's assault. Actually, if they ate it and swallowed it, that's battery. So battery is when you actually hit or touch somebody with like spitting, or if you flick a lighter at somebody, that's like 5th degree assault, because assault is defined as like a fear of being hurt or touched or made sick. Some people even like during COVID, they were like coughing on somebody violently, could be like assault. And if you're like spit particulate hit them, that even was a battery. So it depends on how the courts find it, but that's usually what it looks like. If you stole also a car, they also have petty theft where it's like a misdemeanor at $400. Anybody know what the states are? Some states are different now. Some have raised it to $999, and if you steal 1,000 or more, that's a felony. So they're all different. Delinquency, that's usually a status offense, like non-criminal behavior classified as delinquent. You've got some criminal violations, minors in need of assistance, waivers to adult court, like if maybe a 17-year-old committed a heinous crime, like age and circumstances vary state to state. The trend is to make it easier for juveniles to be tried as adults And minorities, there's disparities in treatment and disproportionate confinement that we were talking about in the redlined areas that you can see. Sometimes there's a heavier police presence and you see more arrests there. Punishment options. There's retribution, like just desserts model, equate penalty with severity of crime. Deterrence is like they try to prevent criminal behavior through sentencing guidelines. Rehabilitation. There's education to develop vocational skills. Sometimes you'll get that in juvenile detention center where they like train you to get a job. Did you guys hear about a kid who assaulted his teacher for taking the Nintendo away, or Nintendo Switch? That was recent, I think. And he may get several years. I think he knocked him out unconscious. I think it was assault and battery. And so if that is a harsh penalty, if he gets like the full sentencing, that would act as a deterrence to ideally prevent that criminal behavior. But who knows? Rehabilitation to educate and develop vocational skills, and then reintegration. A lot of social workers work on reintegration, if I could say that. Halfway houses and other services, aid transition. You see a lot of halfway houses with drug and alcohol. They gave out new federal funds for drugs and alcohol rehab, and apparently Ohio is the third largest behind California and Florida. So I guess our opioid crisis is that much worse. So I know we have people presenting Tuesday, so if any of you wanted to go earlier,